Ruchim Habayim, thank you for making it out. We have tonight a super geschmacka presenter, Rabbi Noam Webb, Chabad of Remsen, from Midtown, Manhattan, Kollel. He's going to present on the subject, as written on the flyer, the process of Tahara, and primarily focusing on Vestos, Yemei Achshash, how to make sure that we don't even get close to Achshash, Achman al-Itzlan, of Yisuri Krisus. We know B'chlal that these are, if you ever, as a Tamim, always were Mitzayer, it says that Rabbi Kiva, Masa Yadi V'Akaimenu, Rabbi Yosef Kara wanted to be Moiser Nefesh, V'Poyel, instead he wrote the Shulchan Aruch. This is one of the places where we have an opportunity B'Poyel Mamish to be nizar from Inyanim of Gimel Averis, of Yeharik Val Yaver. It's Mamish like all the Arayis Shabbatayra. Only Nafkamin is L'gabe Mamzerus in certain cases. That it's different B'nei Anida, but it's an unbelievable opportunity for each one of us to connect to the Eibishter on a very personal level. And we have no better presenter to present this subject than Rabbi Webb. Without further ado, Rabbi Webb.
Rabbi Yusewitz, thank you for arranging these Hamishpacha refresher courses. It's very important. Everything needs chidush, and especially in Yom of Tahara, to be tered to chizuk b'chlal. But as things go on in life, there's always new necessity for the mechadish, miranin, refresh, and to know things that we didn't know, and to know things that we did know and forgot, and so on and so further. So they asked me to speak tonight about the process of Tahara and Baker on Vestos. With regards to the process of Tahara, typically it's things you learn in your chassan, and it doesn't fluctuate much. But with regards to Vestos, there are a lot of kedushim in different stages in life. People could have very, very stable Vestos for many years, and then they have unstable Vestos. They have all different types of things that come up that they weren't ever aware of due to different situations in life. So it's kedai to refresh these ideas and to know what to do. Just to start off with a thought, Parsh Baloischa, It's all about elevation, about inspiring, to the point that people could be independent. When it comes to Tahara, of course, you want everybody to be independent, but ultimately we need our banim, we need to medihira, to guide us. There's some questions that we need to have hachra. We find that going back to this David Melech, that it says Dam Maleo, that he was involved in deciding between Dam, Shvir, Shilia, and all these different things. Basically, that you always need distinction. It's not 100% clear, but the general halach is we should have Dam path. We should have clarity on. But the idea is that that we have to increase in our knowledge. We have to get stronger and stronger and be able to inspire others. And by us making ourselves stronger, that's ultimately the way of inspiring others. Like the idea of Balaischa, ultimately, the way of inspiring others is by having more brightness. Like the idea of the way the light was in the Beis Hamikdash, that the windows were facing outwards. That it wasn't that the light was facing outwards. The light wasn't projecting outwards. It was lit during the day, and it wasn't next to the window. But if it's bright by us, then it shines ultimately outwards. So when it's strong, then Yom of Taharas Hamishpacha, by Chassidus Mishpachas, that affects obviously our Shalom Bayis, affects our Mishpachas, but it affects everybody else as well, and it projects outwards. Mizet, that people that are strong, people that are committed, you see it's Tahara, you see it's Kedusha, and the reality shows, in the Soyin Head, and the reality shows that it has a very great effect on the whole community. The figure of Taka mentions is actually about the Kollel in Frankfurt. That there was just a few women that were in Niz and Taharas that ended up changing the whole community. Just came to mind. So let's start off talking about the process of Tahara. So the Rebbe in his letters very often writes, letters minus, writes Dik Taharas Mishpacha, similar to the idea of, the Rebbe mentioned to people that they should check their Tul Mezuzahs. It even became sometimes like a abbreviation, Rosh Tevis, Dik Taharas Mishpacha. So it was like a standard thing, so to speak, in certain times, certain situations. But nevertheless, the Rebbe very often, in letters and minus, would enumerate and say, and write, Nida, Hefsek Tahara, sometimes Zayin Nekiyim, sometimes not, and Tefillah B'Kshera. And I can't say for sure, that's not exactly what the Rebbe's Kavanah when that is, but Pashtus, the idea is that the Rebbe wanted to enumerate that there are many pratim in Taharas Mishpacha, and if a person is missing certain pratim, he's missing Taharas Mishpacha. I mean, on some level, he's trying his best, and the Rebbe writes tikkunim for people that make mistakes, but it's a whole corpus. There's a whole picture. It's a whole goof, echad, and there are certain inyanim that are makif, some things that are not makif, whatever it is. But ultimately, we have to strengthen all those various elements. So the process of tahara, see, the Rebbe mentions nida, and including nida, the Vestos. It's part of the process of nida, archakis, and all the various the things that are connected with it. But then you have the idea of hasatara, that you can't begin in the process of tahara until a person did hasatara, a woman did hasatara. So hasatara is what breaks that begins to break that cycle. Hasatara, I mean, most of these halachas are taught to the kalos. The women should review them themselves. They probably have their notes. But the husband's worthwhile to be generally aware of what hasatara entails. They know that, generally speaking, we try to make, in addition to the bedika of hasatara, we try to make a mechitachuk. It's important, even though that in many scenarios we'll do away with it, especially if you ask it up. But chachila, it should be done to do bedika of hasatara Friday night. A woman can't carry outside if there's no eruv, because it's considered to be a masul, even though a regular sanitary baggage, whatever it is that she's using, is not considered a masui, but this is a masui. So she can't go outside during that time between shkia and Zeis Chavim. So the proper time for Hefsek Tahara is to do it samach shkia, but it shouldn't really be done before Minchitana. Minchitana is 2.5 hours zmanius before evening. There are situations, whatever, the Shachas, you have to ask Shalfarav, it's not a simple thing, but generally speaking, it should be done. It should be done later in the close to the evening. But it should not be done after Shkia whatsoever. It's a very harmful thing. It has to be the ascertaining that a woman stopped seeing that blood must be affirmative before Shkia. Now, the Shiv Nekiyim, even though conceptually it begins after a person might have Satara, but practically it only begins the next day. And not in the sense that a woman starts wearing, love, she wears white garments and white bed sheets, whatever it is, that begins by night. But what's essential in the process of the Shiv Nekiyim is to have B'dikas throughout the Shiv Nekiyim. The Gemara says it should be done twice a day. It was done for Taharas. It's brought in Shulchan Aruch. That's the proper way of doing it. There might be many reasons where Rabbanu are going to be moira for particular women to do it less. But what's essential is that it should be done the first day and the last day. And that's why it's essential as well that even if a person does have a heter to make less b'dikas, it could happen in different situations in life, but they shouldn't minimize it to the least amount of b'dikas if it's not necessary, because there's a potential chas v'shalom of missing that last b'dika before shkia and then create real problems. So the idea is, and this is essential, that there are people that did make this mistake, it's even brought in earlier Sfarim, that the first bedika of Shiv Nekiyim is not in the evening, it's not the Hefsek Tahara, and not even the bedika of Erev, but it's a bedika of the morning. And obviously, morning means after Netzach Chama. This is Negea, both to the ideas of what we discussed over here, bedikas in Shiv Nekiyim, and later with regards to the Vestos, that the Vestos, we always calculate daytime from Netzach Chama till Shkia, even though we got the other halachas, we do consider Elech Shachar Yom, but with regards to Vestos, in regards to Itchkes, we consider it from Netzacham. Even though b'diavad, we might say that it's okay if a person did Itchkes for Netzachama, but that's a b'diavad situation. But it's essential that a woman should make her first Itchkes by Yom on the first day. It's very important. Yeah, so the whole idea of the Tahara only begins after a person has counted 5 days. And this is also a very Talmudic thing, even though that it's based on, number of Svekes and Gezeres. Nevertheless, the Rama tells us that Asal Hakol B'Reish L'Olam, and it's very, very, very strict din, that if there's the potential that the husband and wife could have been together, potential means halachically they were able to be together, not that they were together, not that they were in the same town, but if halachically it was a possibility, then from the moment that she became tamei, whether it was a short period or a long period, even though typically periods do last a duration of 5-6 days, but nevertheless, even if it was very short, it was just a re'iyah of kesim or dik, whatever it is, she must wait a minimum of 5 days before she makes that hefsek tahara. And the 5 days is including the day that she saw. She saw by night or she saw by day. It does make a difference. Starting from the night before, that's when we consider it to be that day. So it could be a short amount of time or a long amount of time, but ultimately you have to wait the 5 days. Then the end of the 5th day, that's when she makes the hefsek tahara. Just to mention, this comes up, that it doesn't make a difference how many times she tries to make a vidika. She could try as many times as long as she doesn't harm herself. Let's be careful with that. But the main thing is she has a clean vidika before shkia. The previous vidikas that she made, is not really relevant. Yeah, so the Torah tells us that Vim Torah Mizeva V'Sarf L'Shivas Yom B'Achar Titar, there's a mitzvah that she should count. There's a discussion on halacha, she actually have to count verbally or not. It seems the minhag is not to count verbally, but it is brought down in the various svarim, including in Kistina Tahara, that there's such a minhag. But the point is that she's neman v'safar Allah. It's her neman, it's her mitzvah. But also v'achar titar v'achar achar, that it has to be consecutive days. There can't be any break in those days, which means that we have to establish that throughout those days there was no relapse, there was no tumah, there was no, not just tumah needed, actually no discharge of any type of impurity, and that's actually the reason why you have to wait 5 days, because the potential of shechazera, if she had the potential to be with her husband, then potentially within 72 hours it could still have viability, the shechazera, and that would actually eliminate 1 day. So because it's not something that should be aware of, it's not something that's perceptible, so therefore we are guys that we have to wait 5 days. 72 hours came 5 days, that's another cheshbon, but Zaydim sees, because all the svek is about. Yeah, so just to remember, the simple cheshbon is that the night of the Hefsek Tahara, which means the evening of the Hefsek Tahara, and the night of the mikveh would always be the same night, because needless to tell us Erev, and we're chayshish for a zav over here, but the idea is that it would always be the 8th night. So it's an easy way to calculate when she's going to the mikveh. The night she made the Hefsek Tahara, a week later she's going to be going to the mikveh. Yeah. So a woman shouldn't be concerned. If she has a hard time making dikas, it's not a big deal. There are aids to soften or to moisten or to do less dikas. In all these various situations, if she has issues with actually seeing blood on these bdikas, it's very possible that she's having a makkah, she's having irritations or other types of injuries over there, and there are people that could help. So it's important that she should reach out, she tell her husband, tell the Rav about the situation, go to Itchkes, and it could really mitigate a lot of problems, no reason to suffer in silence. Yeah. With regards to showing those bdikas, so obviously, if a person knows that there's nothing that's problematic, that it's a color that's not shaykh in any way to red, there's no shayla, there's no you have to shayla for Rav. But if there's something that has not allowed mimos, there's some type of redness or brownness that possibly has some redness, she's not an expert, most people aren't, so you should show it to Rav. But it's important actually that a person doesn't keep the bedikas, and save them to the end of the week. For practical reasons, they fade, they get lost, create a big heartache, you don't know which one's which, it's a balagan. If you have a shayla, bring it to Rav right away. Baruch Hashem, the community today, there's many moitzim that are answering shaylas, and it's a lot better than it was, and they should help invite them right now. Yeah, and then you have Tvila, Bini, Tvila, Chtitza, Chvifa. I'm not going to go through this because I believe this is something that's much more relevant to the women, and just to encourage them and to make sure that you're home to babysit and to give them the time, that they shouldn't be rushed, they shouldn't feel pressure, shouldn't be muhumul lebeisa, like the Gemara says, and you do everything properly without any pressure, because that's where the issues come up. And obviously to be there and to be present. Okay, so let's get a little bit to the Din Vestos over here. So I mentioned that there's Nida, there's Hefsatara, there's Shivin Akim, there was some Israel Tanikim, and the idea of Tefillah Mikvah. There's one more point about Tefillah Mikvah. Is Baruch Hashem, there's many mikvahs, and mikvahs are being built every day, and it's a murdik kazach. But unfortunately, not all of them are on the same standards. And the Rebbe always emphasized Tefillah Mikvah Kshera. The Rebbe was very involved in this, in making sure that mikvahs are built properly on the highest standards. And what's essential is that they should be under Hefshav Arov, because just because it was built properly doesn't mean it's necessarily being maintained properly. It's Baruch Hashem, the community. Everybody knows there are people involved, they're doing things, but when people travel, so even though obviously a person should always prefer to go to Baruch Mikveh, but the main thing is to go to mikveh to make sure that it's being maintained by Yerushalayim, people that are knowledgeable, and that is essential. Regards to it should be berga uber, not berga uber. That's essential. It's something that could be discussed, but the fact that it should be with the proper Yerushalayim managing it is essential. Yeah. Okay. Vestos. So the whole idea of Vestos, the whole idea of Vestos is that Chazal established as a fact that women have a pattern. Every woman has a pattern. That even if we are aware that women doesn't have a pattern, when we say obviously she has a pattern. We don't know what the pattern is, but there is some pattern, and that's the basis of the idea of Vestos. That the Torah tells us that you should warn the Jewish people to vizartim, to separate from the Tumah. And Chazal learned this is the additional stringency that in addition to actually being poirish mishasem, when a woman is actually halachically anida, and it's a crisis, but it's also necessary, in addition to that, to be poirish in a achas samach avesta, the Gemara says, a time, or in a achas samach avesta, whatever that means, we'll discuss, that samach avesta that's close to the time that she anticipates to see. The Gemara already has a discussion if it's deraisa derabanan. The vast majority of Rishonim learn that it's actually derabanan. But nevertheless, as Mekuakra, they establish it based on the pasuk, because actually, if you learn the Rishonim, and even many of the Rishonim, they don't learn that the whole thing is necessarily derabanan. They learn that the general idea of the calculations, the vestis are derabanan, but the krisha, the separation, might not be derabanan, might actually have some deraisa aspects to it. But the general idea is that we assume that women have a cycle. And historically speaking, many women had a cycle, or most women had a cycle. Look at the Svarim, previous generations. It was obvious that they had cycles. But nowadays, most women don't have cycles. But even now that most women don't have cycles, or kvuadika cycles, they do have some cycles, which means they do make cycles from time to time. So really, you could argue that nowadays we have Baruch Hashem apps and digital calendars that calculate these things, and it was something that took a lot of effort, a lot of input from Rabbanim to develop it properly. It's a major upgrade, so to speak, in this mitzvah of keeping touch with Hamishpacha, and the idea of keeping Vestos. But nevertheless, there's still a strong reason to understand it, and possibly even to keep your own calculation beyond just the computing. And the reasons are many, just maybe some of the practical reasons that I see regularly is that if you don't understand what you're doing, then you don't really have a relationship with it. Putting things into the computer and spitting stuff out is not something that's really meaningful. It doesn't tell you anything meaningful. Also, apps and programs just spit out, what it knows. It's not relating to the actual reality. It's like Yiddishkeit and AI. It's not reality. It makes not mistakes, but it makes things that are not relevant. It just puts kash on brush. It needs sometimes Taharas, actual human input to really evaluate what's going on. But one of the main reasons is that it's our mitzvah. It's something that we don't delegate, to somebody else. We have to upgrade by making sure we do it right. It picks up patterns that we wouldn't have picked up otherwise. It picks up ideas that we might not be aware of, but to totally just dismiss it and say it's the mitzvah of the computer is not ideal. Can't say people that only do bits in the computer not doing a good thing. It's a very good thing, but we should for sure understand what's going on and also how to use the computer, how to put the inputs. So the idea is that nowadays that there's much less we call Vestos kvuos, regular cycles. So we're dealing with Vestos kvuos, which essentially are an anticipation or a suspicion that Shem Tikava, maybe it's going to become a real Vestos. So when Chazal use the term Vestos, and even the Poskim, Shonim, Machon, they use the term Vestos, typically meant an actual Vestos, a Vestos Kavua. But when it comes to our application of Vestos, we're typically talking Vestos Shenik Kvuos, but those Vestos Shenik Kvuos have a certain element that we're Choshesh, Shem Tikava, maybe it's going to become a Vestos Kavua. Okay. So we always have to look at those angles and see, okay, what's going on over here? But there's a certain kula associated with that, because it's not yet a Vestos Kavua. So therefore, one time that you see that it wasn't established, so it's gone. There's some ways of dealing with that, we'll discuss. But a Vestos Shenik Kavua, generally speaking, you could undo it, the same way it comes, the same way it goes. But a Vestos Kavua is something that you've established with Chazak of Torah 3 times. Sometimes it needs 4 or 5 times because it's a different type of Vestos Kavua. But essentially it's a 3-time thing. And one of the major distinctions between if you have a Vestos Kavua and Vestos Shenik Kavua is that if you have a Vestos Kavua, you don't have to be chosh for anything else. You know what it is. You know what's causing it. And that's the halacha. Everything else goes by the wayside. You don't need any more inabaninus. You don't need to check for haflaga or chodesh because you have your cycle. But being that most people are not retaining these systems, so then automatically they're going off them. So you still have to be chodesh Vestos Shenik Kavua by the wayside. So she may have a Vestos Kavua of always singing Rosh Chodesh, so she established that 3 times. But then in the 4th month she's on Beis Chodesh, so you're still checking the next 3 Rosh Chodeshes, but she's also checking Beis Chodesh the next month because maybe it's Beis Chodesh is changing. It's Shem Tikava, maybe it's going to become Beis Chodesh. So you always have to keep that in mind. So Vestos Kavua in a certain sense is a kula, but really it ends up often creating much more, scrutiny because you have to be chosh what's going on, beyond that Vestos Kavua that you've established. Another distinction between Vestos Kavua and Shenik Kavua is that a Vestos Kavua, we assume that Echus Bana Ba, a guest comes in time, even though it's not Noag over here, the guest comes in time, but the Gemara says that Echus Bana Ba. So when you have a pattern, so the pattern of pasta should have happened. So when it comes to a Vestos, you have a chiyuv prisha and a chiyuv v'dika, right? You have to separate from your wife, discuss what that means, and you have a chiyuv to be baidik as well. But with regards to Vestos Shenik Kavua, the prisha you do, which means that you separate from your wife with regards to having actual relations, and it's Tavel Bracha. It says with regards to Chiluk and Nishik, and Alter Rebbe says, Koshke and Lishik Mita Achas, and that's, I believe, standard, even though it says Tavel Bracha. I believe it's a standard thing for them to hear Chazai, that we don't keep our chakis, but those things that are considered to be suggestive type of activities, things that are krev l'rayis, things that that are the Chiluk and Nishik type of ideas. So those things that we should be careful about during the Vestos. But with regards to B'dikais, with regards to a Vestin and Kavua, so you have to record, whenever you have a period, you have to record what time that period was, and to make B'dika after that time. And we'll discuss what the Vestin and Kavuas are. But after that time, that's why it's important to record exactly when it happens, not to push it off, because you won't remember exactly when it happened, especially the times change, and you have to deal with savings and whatever. It's just engage in mishats. So therefore, you have to make a b'dika afterwards. But if it didn't make a b'dika afterwards, being that it was never kavua, we're suspecting maybe shem tekava. We're suspecting maybe this is the time that's going to become a kaviyas. So if a person didn't make a b'dika, it could happen. You know, she was traveling, she was at work, forgot, kids, busy. So she doesn't have to make a b'dika afterwards. Even though there are some achronim, some contemporary places can say that after she passed her time, it's probably kedai, just more as a suggestion, that because she passed her time, it's already after the time that she's going to see her period any day. So before they actually have tashmish, so it's kedai to probably to make a b'dika. Obviously not in front of her husband for other reasons, but she should probably make a b'dika. But that's neither here nor there. But there's no chiyuv. Once it was over yema, we didn't assume that she became tummy, and therefore there's no restrictions. But with regards to ves kavua, if she actually had an ves kavua, or with regards to the inabenis, we'll discuss what that is in a moment. So, Surah Shtiebel, we assume that that's the time, that's the time that she actually saw. So we have to establish that she didn't see. So there are some poskim that actually are so machmer, and they're showing him yet, that if she didn't check, then she's a Surah Shtiebel. And it's too late. We don't pass in that way. That's kavua. We don't pass in that way. We say that even if she missed it, she could still check, even if it's a few days later. But she must check. So if her oina beinus is passed, a woman who doesn't have a ves kavua, most women don't have. So her oina beinus, in a certain sense, is her ves kavua, because we assume that everybody has a vesis. We just don't know what it is. So what do we say? We say, oh, she's the reiv nashim. Most women, she's not going to see. Obviously, she's going to see sometimes. Okay, so this is her ves kavua, so to speak. It's not actually her personal ves kavua, but it's the ves kavua of reiv nashim that every month she's going to see, the 30th day. So, so the idea is that if she forgot, that she didn't have the opportunity to be baidik, she's a surah shetibdaik, her husband has to ask her after the vest is passed, were you baidik? Because otherwise it's a surah shetibdaik, because we assume that the period actually came. So that's a major distinction between a vest kavua and a vest sheni kavua. So now let's get into what has to be done with regards to a woman who has a vest sheni kavua. There's all different types of vestas. And that's why computers are very good, because they can pick up things that no one ever pick up. And sometimes we have to be faced with them, sometimes we don't have to be faced with them. But, sometimes it's the chumrah, sometimes it's the kula. But we do have a general gang, a general approach in the poskim that a woman doesn't have ves kavua. We are choishish for the majority of women what normal vestas are. What's the normal vestas? The normal vestas is that she's not going to see, she must have a cycle. So automatically, when she has a period, and she doesn't have ves kavua, you're going to right away mark off 30th day. 30th day is very easy to calculate. It's 4 weeks and a day. So it's a day after the day that she saw. So you're counting 30 days with the day she saw, and the 30th day. That's the inabenis. So she would not use that inabenis if that's she kavua. She has an inabenis, and then she's going back to possibly shem tikava. She's deviating from that inabenis. As long as she has her ves kavua is still present, she's not cheshish for the inabenis. So that's the first thing that she's going to put on the calendar, or he's going to put it on the calendar. It's not her job necessarily. It's both of your jobs. When it comes to b'dikos and chafifis and all these other things, it's tefillah. It's much more incumbent upon her. But really, the mitzvah of Taharas Hamishpacha is really incumbent on both. And really, there should be opportunities for the husbands to participate in a helpful way and show that they're part of it and they're sensitive and they care and they're not looking, to opt out. Dump it on somebody else. So it's probably a reason that if the husband could, if he's capable, to at least assist, in the calendar. It's a smart thing to do. So the idea of Einer Beininus that we put on the calendar will only be again when you have Vestos She'eina Kavua, and there'll never be more than one Einer Beininus on the calendar. So put it down. It's going to be there, just until she's going to see the next period. And if she's the next period, you just move it to the next 30 days after that. The next 30 days after that, you never carry it over. You never have to worry about that. But the other two things that we're going to be chosh is like this: is that Chazal saw that the cycles are connected to the lunar cycles. It's not just something that's a chiddush of Torah of Chazal. The chiddush of Chazal and Torah is that it's connected to the Jewish lunar cycles and the Shipura Kagarin and the Kav Gamar Lai. That it's really dependent upon the Kiddush HaChodesh, upon the cheshbon of our months, not based on the actual, Moiled and the actual way that the moon actually waxes and wanes. That's a Kiddush of Torah. That's the way we pass. But the idea that women are intimately connected to the cycles of the world, that's something it's quite established. So the idea is that we have the chodesh that maybe it's the lunar cycle, maybe it's the chodesh that is her cycle, and therefore when she sees, so we're going to have to look and see what day it is. But the way we do that is we're not just concerned with the day, but we're also concerned with the oinus. In halacha, we have Yom, which is a 24-hour period, and then you have a oina, is Yom Oy Laila, Chazal. There's some deviations and there's exceptions to the rule, but generally speaking, oina is Yom Oy Laila, and we have to look to see which 12-hour period, which is not necessarily 12 hours, we're talking about 12 hours Zmaniyos, which means from Shkia to Netzachama, or from Netzachama to Shkia, it was in. So if it was Rosh Chodesh, Al Chodesh, so you write down, it was in the evening, you write down what time it was, you write down, the next month, Al Chodesh, that's the time for Bdika and Prisha after the time that she saw. If it was daytime, it was daytime. That's the first Chashash that we're going to encounter. Now, if she sees it 3 times that way, it was Al Chodesh, but it was by night, because we're looking at the Oina as well, so then she establishes a Kvias. When she establishes a Kvias, then you can automatically count the next 3 months, knock it off, that those 3 months can be Choshesh, the same thing, Al Chodesh Ba'erev, and you can take the Oina Beinus off the calendar, you don't have to worry about that anymore, next 3 months. But then, if in that 4th or 5th or 6th month you're having other deviations, you still have to be Choshesh as a Vestos She'eina Kavua, because maybe it's actually going a different direction. You don't know if you're Iker yet. Yeah. You're not Choshesh for Vestos before, you're Choshesh for Vestos that are happening now. You're Choshesh that you see it is. Maybe this deviation is creating a new Vestos. You're Choshesh for Vestos. Yeah. So then you have what we call the Vesaflaga. Vesaflaga is a very logical type of assumption that Chazal have. And that is that what's goyim is not the day of the month with the Oina, but rather what's goyim is the actual interval, the actual amount of time. The woman has a certain cycle that for the amount of time for the whole uterine lining to build up and then expel. Those are understanding the biology of the way things work. So the assumption is that the women have a certain amount of time, and it always works on the same rate, so to speak. But with this also, we calculate the oinus. The way we calculate is like this. This is the Alter Rebbe's psak, even though the Welt does it differently, but the Alter Rebbe is very insistent. He proves in the Rishonim that this is the way it's done, is that we calculate from the Hasitara. is that regardless of when the Haftarah was, obviously you shouldn't push off the Haftarah, but it's actually very important not to push off the Haftarah, not just to add Tumah and to push off the mikveh, which is very problematic, but one of the reasons Chabad is even more chomer is because it does create issues with the Vestos. We want to make sure that we make the Haftarah as soon as we can. But nevertheless, for whatever reason she didn't, we generally calculate from the Haftarah, and we count 2 einos at a time. We count 1 at a time, but you could just do 2, because it's always starting night oina. The Tahara means that it's on the end of the 5th day, or 5th day onward, whatever it is, 6th day, 7th day, whatever it is, you made the Tahara, and then you count the night day, night day, until she has her next period. So when she has her next period, then that would be the final number. So it could be an odd number, even number, depending if it's the night oina or a day oina. And then the next month, which means the 3rd period, you need to have 2 re'iyas in order to establish haflaga. The next month, you would calculate, counting how many days that you're going to mark it up on the calendar. How many oinas is this? That it will be a night oina or a day oina based on the odd or even number of the oinas. So that's how you have the Vesaflaga, and that Vesaflaga also could be Kavua. And the whole objective is Shem Tikava, that's the whole idea over here. So the way you would establish that Vesaflaga as a kfiyas would be that when a woman sees it, 3 months in a row, which is essentially 4 months in a row, because she starts off, to establish those intervals, you have to have 4 years. So then you have the number 64, whatever it is. So then 64 is her haflaga, and that is the number of Choshesh for the next 3 months, and you would knock off the Benis, like we said before. So the question is, how do you take away these vestas? How are we oiker vestas? What do you mean? No, there's different types of haflaga. The general haflaga, yes. You could have a dilug, you could have a sirug. Yes, that's why the computers are good for these things, because sometimes you can find patterns that are not consecutive. Yeah. Yes, it could be that way also, if it's established as a real pattern. And that's why computers could be good at these things, sometimes a little bit too good at it. But yes, generally speaking, it's the same. I don't want to go into that because it's not common. But generally speaking, it's a number that's consecutive. Yeah. Okay, I get it. So how to be oiker Vesach Chodesh? So Vesach Chodesh is very simple to be oiker. Is that you should put down the number in her calendar, and Avra V'leirasa, that day passed and she didn't see, so that Vesach is ois. Whether it came earlier or it came later is not so relevant. The bigger thing is that day passed with Tahara, and she didn't see on that day. And she's supposed to make a bdika on that day. Even if she didn't make a bdika because it was veshen kavua, so we say that veshes is ois, and you wouldn't record it anymore. With the only question comes up when she has her ear a day or 2 or 3 or 4 earlier, and she's still seeing dam that day, but it wasn't the day she actually began seeing dam. It's the Taisus dam, the continue of the shefa, the continual flow of dam is on that day, but it wasn't the beginning of the Riyah. So this is machlokes amongst Rabbanim Pashtus, Pshat Alter Rebbe, and this is the way I believe the Rabbanim over here typically paskin is that we do consider that a continuation of the Enes HaChodesh, and we wouldn't be accurate. Hastis, it's possible to have multiple Enes HaChodesh. That's the way many Rabbanim paskin over here in Israel. Many Rabbanim paskin otherwise. Ask your personal relative how to paskin. It's not an issue of Eretz Yisrael or America. It's an issue of Pshat and Alter Rebbe Dr. Pshitas writes that if the dam is still present, yeah, so it's not over l'rasa. But Dr. Rebbe Talmud, who learned to chat a little bit differently, and therefore there are those who learned that if Dimulira, as she saw earlier, as long as it wasn't the day that she actually saw, so she is Eiker, the Vesel Chodesh. So the distinction basically is, could you have multiple Vesel Chodesh or not? And the person has to ask the person what to do. Okay. Huh? No. It's not necker. No, it's not the tchilas or iyasa. It's just not necker because she was avla and she was rasa. You can't say that it was necker because the oil wasn't clean. She saw down to it. That's part of the whole discussion of why the Rebbe Talmud's name is Elias Rivlin. He learned Pshat and Alter Rebbe differently based on other mentions of Alter Rebbe, but it's based on a bigger sugya. But it's ultimately not, in my opinion, big deal. Grace of Chumrah. It could come out of Chumrah if a woman always sees a little bit shorter. And there's a shadow thing by a personal Rav. Okay, so canceling Vestos Haflaga. So the way we learn by Vestos Haflaga is that a bigger Vestos, if a woman passed that time and didn't see, then it's Nekar, because she passed that time and it showed that wasn't good. But if it was Hikdim Liris, if it was shorter, that's not a proof that her bigger haflaga is not present. Which means basically you could have multiple haflagas, they get smaller and smaller, and she could technically have a lot of numbers that she has to write down. As long as she hasn't passed the small numbers, so then you have to record all those numbers and be chayshish for all those days. That's the way the Alter Rebbe learns. Before I forget, I just remind myself, one thing I'm not following the notes, I should be following the notes, but I'm not. I'm going in my own direction over here, is that another big distinction between Bein Beininus and the other Oinais is that Oinai Beininus, the way we take halacha is that we do 24 hours, not 12 hours. So the regular Oinais of Oinais Chodesh or the Vesel Flaga, we're just keeping the Oina for Prisha and Medika that we actually had that Re'iyah. Machon came, the Oinai Beininus, we are keeping the whole 24-hour period. Yeah. Okay, so the times that a woman is mislekas midam. So there's times that we expect that a woman shouldn't have cycles. What are the times? Yiledis, Skena, a woman who's very young, a woman who's very old, and a woman who is pregnant, and a woman who is after childbirth. So typically nowadays, women that are very young, it's not relevant, it's not legal. But women that goes to menopause, it is relevant, the halachis, we're not going to go through now. But the ideas of muberes minika is very relevant of a woman who's pregnant and a woman who is after childbirth. So what is halachically considered to be pregnant? Pregnant is, a person could take a pregnancy test nowadays, they're very cheap, but that's not halachically typically accepted to be sleks b'dam. Typically it has to be that she actually passed 90 days from her mikkanite. Without her period, that's when she's considered sleks b'dam. So if she passed 90 days from her mikkanite without a period, then she's sleks b'damim. And even if she sees afterwards, there's two things. First of all, somebody should speak to a doctor. It's not typical. It happens. It doesn't mean something to be scared about. It could happen. Some women have it, but it should be checked out. The second thing is that we're not going to make any kfiyas. So even though generally we spoke that the chash of Veshin and Kavua is all Shem Tikava, they were afraid maybe she's going to be Kaveh, but in this particular scenario, it's a little bit different. We're Chosh Veshin and Kavua, but we're not going to be Chosh Veshin and Kavua. So even if every month, whatever she's seeing the same date, which is unlikely, it's unlikely to see every month, it's unlikely to see the same date, but we are going to be Chosh for whatever she does see Dam, it's a Bedika, whatever it is, we're going to be Chosh for Veshin and Kavua. And the same thing would be for a woman who gave birth. A woman who gave birth, so practically, if she's nursing, there would be an extended period of time that she wouldn't see dam. Some women more, some women less. But if she's not nursing, often she sees dam very shortly after she gives birth. But halachically, the way we pass in halacha is that for 24 months, she's halachically misleks b'dam. And this is not just if she had a live birth, but even if she had a miscarriage, but the miscarriage was a viable miscarriage, which means that it was after it was hukah ubra, 40 days, that she knew she was pregnant. So then, for the next 24 months from when the miscarriage happened, then you would not make a ves kavua. So you be choishish for all the chashas, but not be choishish for actually shem tikava. You wouldn't actually make a ves kavua. No, from hukah ubra. It's hard to figure out, but I said it. Chizot. It's child. Whatever. No. Halach. Yeah. Okay, so we mentioned that day and night, with regards to all these dinim of Vestos and Itchkes, is the night and is defined by Shkia to Netzachama, and the day is Netzachama to Shkia. But it's very common that a woman wakes up in the morning and she sees dam, something could be significant dam, and she's certain in her mind that she, especially if it's right after Nitzachama, it could be, Nitzachama could be quite late. So she's sure that happened before Nitzachama. So generally speaking, we pass him that it's daytime, whenever she sees it. We don't back it up. Maybe there's certain circumstances, got Shabbat of, where it's very absurd. But by and large, the halacha is angenommen that it's the zman of the riyasa. So whenever she sees it, that's when we are going to record it, not the time before. Yeah. What do we consider to be relevant for Vestos? So all types of riyas are relevant for Vestos, whether they're short riyas or longer riyas. Including, this is the way we name on over here, including bedikas. A bedika would be also considered to be a Vestos. The only times you wouldn't consider a bedika a Vestos maybe is the first, second day of Shiv Nikiyim, then possibly not. But because you say maybe it's just a Hamishpacha within the time that a woman's flow is still open. But by and large, otherwise, it's a shayla for it up. But by and large, otherwise, all bedikas we would consider to be relevant for Vestos. But ksamim, stains, even if they're very significant stains, has to be a significant stain to be tummy anyways. But even if it's a very significant stain, but it's a riyah that she saw on something else, didn't actually see the dam, so halachically is not considered to be anything that goes toward the calculation. What happens when a woman sees ksamim and then she sees her nida? This is a common question. It's a discussion that reinim, but by and large we also pass in that has to do when the actual dam started, not when the ksamim started before. Shayla for it, but again, that's the general approach to this issue. Yeah, so just to mention that there are other types of Vestos. There's Vestos Aguf, there's Vestos Akvitzis, there are Vestos that are happening through actions, there are Vestos that are happening through experiences. They're very uncommon, and a person feels that they have those types of experiences or activities. It's a Sha'al Farav, exactly how to define it. Then you have the other uncommon Vestos that the computer will pick up much more often, which is the Vestos of Dilug and Sirug. Dilug means that it's moving, which means either it's moving outwards or it's moving inwards, which means you have, for example, a Chodesh that's going Aleph, Beis, Gimel. 1 month is Aleph, next month is Beis, next month is Gimel, or it could be 2 at a time, Aleph, Gimel, whatever it is. It's just working at a set rate. And the same thing if it goes backwards. It goes Aleph to Lamed to Chavtes, and it goes backwards. That also is considered to be a Dilug. And if it's established, then that concludes Vest Kavua. Those types of Vestas the computers pick up often, many times just a Chumra, not a Kula. But those types of things are not just when it's a set rate, Dilug, but you could also have a Sirug, which you mentioned before, that could have alternating, that it skips times and then creates patterns, every other, and Azach Azachin, those are Sirugim, and I don't want to go into all the halachas at this point. I'm sure there's many ideas that I skipped out, but I tried to give as much as can in 1 hour. Try to give a general overview, and I hope this is helpful to be a refresher, to give extra chizuk and commitment and the discourse of Tahara of Bnei Yisrael, Bnei Yisrael. We should have all Chassidus Shanachos from our kinder and Habayis, and only good things, and ultimately the discourse to bring the Mitzvah Shlema.
Huge Yishikoich Rabbi Webb. Vestos Hashem next week, same time, same place. In continuation to the bracha that Rabbi Webb gave in Schus of the Taharas Hamishpacha, we should have Chassidus Shanachos from the children. So as part of the series, there's going to be a talk on Chassidus Chinuch, making sure that our foundations in our home are Chassidus, and then we're skipping the week of Gimel Tammuz. The week afterwards, I think it's Tes Tammuz, is going to be again on Shalom Bayis and on Hashkafa in regards to the mitzvah. So next week is going to be given by yours truly, and the week afterwards, Vestos Hashem by Rabbi Meir Einstein. So looking forward to see you. Thank you for joining today, and Service Tavis Mashiach now.